Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the INPDR webinar on the patient-reported database. My name is Shaun Bolton, and I'll be discussing the PRD this evening to you all. And hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll come away knowing a bit more about what we're trying to do with the patient-reported database, a bit more about how the patient-reported database works, and hopefully you'll be in a position to join the PRD and contribute valuable data to make impactful, meaningful research for Niemann-Pick disease patients around the world. Before we kick off fully, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate 6 p.m. on a Monday is a bit of a challenge for some people to join, so really do appreciate you all taking the time to support the webinar this evening. Just to note, we are recording the webinar, so we can share this with people who couldn't join us this evening. So if you're not happy with being recorded, please do turn off your camera and turn off your microphone. I'll ask you to do this anyway, just so that we're not capturing people in the video. So if your camera is on, or if your microphone is off, please can you turn it off? And please do post any questions that you may have in the chat. We do have some time at the end of the webinar to go through some questions. So as you're going through the webinar, if anything crops up, anything you're not clear about, or anything we haven't explained well, please do post your question in the chat and we will address it at the end of the webinar. So as I said, my name's Shaun. I've had the pleasure of working with the registry now for almost 10 years, and we've had some exciting developments in the registry recently. And most recently is the patient-reported database. This has been going for a number of years now, but we have undertook some changes recently. So this is a very exciting time for the community to join the PRD if they haven't been part of the PRD already. On the webinar this evening, we have Maria Garrido, who is the INPDR communications consultant, and she's been instrumental in organizing this webinar and promoting the webinar. So thank you so much, Maria, for your hard work in getting us over the line. And thanks also to John Lee Taggart. I'm sure a lot of you know John. He's been prolific in the community for a number of years, and he's also been very valuable in organizing this webinar. So thank you. We also have with us this evening, Kirk. Graham is a INPDR ambassador, and he's a member of the Niemann-Pick community. And he'll be talking in a little bit about the value that the patient-reported database and the kind of data that is captured by the PRD, the value that it can bring to the community. And also with us, we have Conan Donnelly. Conan is the Chief Operating Officer, he's the Chief Executive Officer of the INPDR. He's been with us now for 4 years, I think now, Conan. And he would just like to introduce and set the scene for the PRD and just say a few words. So I'll hand over to you, Conan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shaun, and thanks to everyone who's been involved in helping organise this webinar. And thank you most of all for you who are joining and thinking about taking part in the patient-reported database. We are really grateful for your participation. The INPDR is a community registry. It's a registry that aims to collect data to report the experience of people affected by Niemann-Pick diseases with the aim of helping to improve outcomes for patients and their families. Its only goal is to support and improve outcomes for families and patients. And this makes it a very, very special resource for the community. The database has been running for now over 10 years, and we've benefited from lots of expertise and support from researchers, from clinicians, and members of the community, as well as a range of professionals as well. But the registry cannot achieve anything if it doesn't have the support and the participation of patients and their families. So we would like to encourage you very much tonight to take part in the registry and to share your experience with us. By providing your information, the registry becomes richer and stronger in reporting the patient experience in the most clear and accurate way, and that's really important for it to be used in a way that's going to benefit the community, we must be able to reflect and report on the patient experience in an accurate way so that the research that is undertaken using registry data is also accurate and reflective of what the community needs and what the community's priorities are. So this is an important step in that process by telling you about how to join the patient-reported database and telling you about how that data is going to be used. We will work together to build the registry, and as we said, it's progress made possible by you. And this is very, very true. And this is exactly what we're doing tonight. We're working together to make progress. So with that, I want to get on with the meeting, and I'll pass you back over to Shaun, and thank you all again for taking part. So very much appreciated.
That's great, Conan. Thank you so much. And that really does set the scene of the work that we're trying to do here with the patient-reported database, and also wider of what we're trying to achieve with the INPDR. I'm sure it comes as no surprise to members of the community that there are a number of gaps and challenges that exist within Niemann-Pick disease. And specifically, there are a number of unmet needs. Now, these are common across Niemann-Pick disease, but they're also common across the rare disease space, across the board. We have questions around the natural history, or as we call it, the disease course of Niemann-Pick disease. The Niemann-Pick disease is comprised of acid-sphingomyelinases deficiency and also Niemann-Pick disease type C. Already we have two distinct but overlapping diseases coming under the umbrella term of Niemann-Pick disease. And within acid-sphingomyelinases deficiency and within Niemann-Pick disease type C, we have a whole spectrum of different presentations of these diseases. Patients can be affected very differently, but they may have the same disease. So we don't fully understand what the disease course looks like, or what the natural history, how the disease progresses over time in the Niemann-Pick diseases. We also have challenges in therapeutics and medications for patients with Niemann-Pick disease. In some situations, we may have one, maybe a small handful of effective therapies, but in some situations, we may have no effective treatments. That might be changing on the horizon, but as things currently stand, treatment options are limited. And what do these things mean? What does it mean to not understand the disease course? What does it mean to have limited treatment options? These are impacting on medical care that patients are receiving. If we had better understanding of how disease progresses and also better treatment options, we can impact medical care of patients. And research can help us with these challenges. Research can address unmet needs by illuminating the natural history, by identifying potential treatments, and ultimately transforming care. But there are challenges in undertaking research. And some of these challenges are common across rare diseases, but specifically a lot of these challenges are in the Niemann-Pick field space. We have issues with patient population size. Being a rare disease, Niemann-Pick disease affects a small number of patients, and these patients are dispersed all over the world. In order to conduct research that is high quality and impactful, you need ideally as many patients as possible taking part in a research study. This could be hundreds of patients, and this could be thousands of patients. The more patients you can get to participate in a research study, the more data you will have, meaning that you can be more sensitive to the findings of that research study and have more confidence in the research study findings. And this is a challenge in Niemann-Pick because we have, as mentioned, small patient numbers spread across the world. We have some scenarios where there are competing studies. Now, where we may have 2 or 3 studies active, you may find in some scenarios where participating in one study means you can't participate in another study. So already in a field that has small numbers of patients, we're further diluting the potential for patients to take part in research by saying if you're participating in one study, you can't participate in another. And probably the biggest challenge when it comes to delivering high quality, impactful research is the infrastructure required to run this. Having quality research takes time to organize the study. It takes expertise to design the study. And probably most importantly, you need money. You need a significant amount of funding to run this study. So what is being done to try and mitigate these challenges to address the unmet need in Niemann-Pick disease? We have the International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry. As Conan mentioned, the objective of the INPDR is to document the lives of patients living with Niemann-Pick disease, to advance research, and ultimately to transform the care of patients living with Niemann-Pick disease. What that means is that we have produced a platform to facilitate and support meaningful research into Niemann-Pick diseases by bringing together patients from around the world to participate in the registries to have as much Niemann-Pick disease patient data available as possible. And this data would then go on to support a host of research studies that could use that Niemann-Pick data. And what does this platform look like? Well, this platform is a global registry, and this is a global registry for acid-sphingomyelinases deficiency and Niemann-Pick disease type C. And within this registry, we have two branches. We have the branch that collects clinical data. Now, this is data that is generated in hospitals by doctors and is held in medical notes. And we capture this information through the clinician-reported database, also known as a CRD. Now, a lot of you may already be participating in the clinician-reported database. And if you are interested in taking part, this is something you should certainly discuss with your doctor on your next opportunity. We also capture patient-reported outcome. Now, this is information around the quality of life of living with a disease. And we capture this via the patient-reported database, the PRD. And as you guessed, this is the focus of our webinar this evening. We'll be talking about what the PRD is, what it captures, and more importantly, how you can take part. So the patient-reported database, it's an online web-based registry. This means you can access it on your computer and you can access it on your smart device. You can use a tablet or you can use a phone. So there are many ways to access and join the PRD. The PRD itself presents users a series of questionnaires, and it is these questionnaires that are asking questions around quality of life and the impact the disease has. And these disease questionnaires and these quality of life questionnaires are tailored specifically to patients with acid-sphingomyelinases deficiency and patients with Niemann-Pick disease type C. But not only are we asking questions to patients, we're also providing questionnaires to carers and to parents to make sure that we are capturing the whole picture of what it means to live with Niemann-Pick disease, not just how it impacts patients, but how it impacts families and those who care for patients. And we capture these questionnaires on a 6-monthly basis. This means every 6 months, we ask users to come and complete a new batch of questionnaires. And they'll be the same questionnaires each time. The reason we're doing that is by having long-term capture of these questionnaires over time, we can start understanding how the quality of life and other areas that we assess in the questionnaires, how these things can change over time. Having that long-term data and collecting data on a high number of patients means that we can have better quality data to provide to support research that is looking to undertake Niemann-Pick disease research. If there's one message that I can share with you all today, and if there's one thing you can take away from this webinar, hopefully it is this. Joining the patient-reported database is the most effective way to support meaningful research. By joining the PRD, by answering questionnaires and contributing data, you can directly shape and positively impact research that's being undertaken in Niemann-Pick disease. And we're going to get into a few examples in a few slides' time about the kinds of research studies that can be supported by PRD data, and also some examples of research that has used PRD data as part of the study. So maybe taking a step back, what does the patient-reported database do? I think we can sum it really in 3 parts. It allows patients and caregivers to tell their story of living with Niemann-Pick disease by completing these questionnaires that assess quality of life and disease impact. And these questionnaires are completed every 6 months. And what does this lead to? This leads to the provision of a high-quality resource of patient-reported outcome data for Niemann-Pick disease, which ultimately can support high-impact and meaningful research to improve the lives of patients with Niemann-Pick disease around the world. So by contributing your data, we increase the amount of data available and increase the quality of data available to support a wide range of studies looking to increase the well-being of patients with Niemann-Pick disease. So we said what it does, we're looking at what we're trying to achieve, but let's get into the nitty-gritty bit. Let's look a bit under the hood about the kind of data that the PRD collects. As mentioned, the PRD shows a series of questionnaires and asks the user to respond to these questionnaires on a 6-monthly basis. And generally, the questionnaires cover off these 5 broad areas. We're looking at the general quality of life. What is the overall well-being of patients with Niemann-Pick disease? We do this by using well-validated and well-used and well-researched questionnaires. We're looking at the SF36, which is given to adults, and the PEDS-QL for children. You don't need to remember the names. You don't need to worry about what it means. Just understand that it is looking at the general overall well-being of patients. We then have questionnaires that look at the disease-specific quality of life impact, and this focuses specifically on the disease and looks at the impact that symptoms can have on a patient's life, as well as some of the disease-specific challenges. Now, currently we have a quality of life questionnaire specifically tailored to Niemann-Pick disease type C. We don't currently have an active equivalent for acid-sphingomyelase deficiency, but this is certainly a priority piece of work for the registry to see how we can support the development of such a questionnaire. And by participating in the PRD, you can support research that can help facilitate the development of a questionnaire. As mentioned earlier, as well as the patient perspective and the patient quality of life, we also want to look at the impact that the disease has on the caregiver. So what is the caregiver well-being? And we capture this information through a carer quality of life questionnaire. We also try and address some of the unmet needs. So how can we better support patients and carers and family members? And we do this through a supportive cares need questionnaire. And finally, we have questionnaires that look at the patient-reported disease severity. This is the patient's own perception of living with their disease. And we have such a questionnaire for NPC, which is based on a very well-characterized NPC-specific scale. And we also have specific questions on symptoms and severity for ASMD. Now, I don't expect you to go away and remember all these questionnaires. The questionnaires that you will see if you take part in the PRD, as mentioned earlier, are tailored to your disease type, ASMD versus NPC, and tailored to the type of registry user you are. If you're a patient completing the questionnaire yourself, or if you're a parent or a carer who's completing the questionnaire on behalf of a patient. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute now, and I'm going to hand over to Graham Kirk, who we introduced earlier, who's our INPDR ambassador. And Graham is a champion of the INPDR and is also a user of the PRD, and he's very kindly agreed to talk about what the PRD means to the community and his perspective on the value the PRD can bring to the community. So I'd like to hand over to Graham.
Thanks, Shaun. A lot of abbreviations there. I suppose people are a little bit nervous seeing all them. But as Shaun was saying, when you register or sign in, your survey will be customized to you. So how can a survey be customized to you? Well, the fortunate part is all the detail that you've put in the registration at the beginning. So it'll be able to assign the relevant survey to you. Me, myself, and from my point of view, I was diagnosed in 2010, 14 years ago. So I signed up to the INPDR, but I did not know what I was signing up to it. And I suppose this whole rebrand since Conan has come in 4 years ago has really opened my eyes to the value that patient-reported data can give to us in this ultra-rare field that we're in with Niemann-Pick type C. Having met Conan, he's come from a background of huge, I suppose, integrity, if you want to call it that, but he has sort of made other illnesses like a registry for other illnesses and made it really, really strong. And it's improved I suppose the medical and the patient side of things for them. So that alone is a positive for us to have in our corner, fighting this fight. As we were saying earlier about the structure of questionnaires, everybody has a different story with Niemann-Pick type C. So I'm a patient, I can fill it out, but fortunately or unfortunately, some of you might have brothers or sisters or moms or dads, but you can still fill it out for them, and you can still be a part of this journey, and you can still give back. And I think that's a really, really important thing, because not all stories are the same for everybody in this group or this cohort. It's just it's a great opportunity for the registry, for us to speak to you tonight. It's great to have, but it's great to have all you involved with this, because it means that, you know, we're making the right footsteps forward. As Shaun was saying, there's gaps and challenges, but there's gaps and challenges with everything. You know, but it's going to take time to build. It's already seen a massive growth since 2020. It's gone from like 200 to 400 people globally. So we're starting to see some traction in terms of, you know, people getting involved with it. And as I said, there's a clinician side which you may be already signed up to, but as Shaun said, you'll have to speak to your doctor regarding that. I myself, I'm in Ireland, but like, fortunately, I've got two doctors in Dublin and one doctor in Manchester. So I go to Manchester and they do the PRD for me. So I'm now going to have to chase my doctor in Dublin to make sure they're getting involved with it. So yeah, like, I've probably not made any sense to you all. So apologies for that. But if we take anything from it, we'll learn about trends. Trends will help us going forward with this. And then hopefully in conferences to come, we'll see INPDR data being used to give results and to give feedback on surveys or on theses that are being done about Niemann-Pick. It's not going to be a fixer for us, but it's definitely going to help us and be a positive on us going forward.
That's great. Thank you so much, Graham. And I love what you said as part of that very eloquent, no need to apologize, that very eloquent conversation. But you mentioned about the range of experiences that patients can have. And I think, you know, we try and position ourselves to really allow patients to you know, tell their story, because the experience of one patient, as you said for yourself, may differ from other patients. And you know, the PRD provides opportunity for everyone to tell their story of what Niemann-Pick disease means to them. So thank you so much, Graham, for your time. So we've had some understandings of what the PRD is and the kind of information and data that the PRD collects. But now let's go to the output side of things and what kind of research can PRD data support. Primarily, the registry is set up to support independently led national and international research studies. And what we mean by this is that applicants from around the world, from a range of backgrounds, from researchers and clinicians, even patient advocacy groups, can submit requests to use registry data to support research studies that they have. And they could be looking at patients in their own country, or they could be looking at patients across the world. So the registry is really positioned to support all applicants of all backgrounds to try and undertake as much kind of research as possible. And as mentioned earlier, some of the examples of the research that we can support, trying to understand the changing natural history and identify unmet needs that may exist in Niemann-Pick disease. Look at health service utilization, so how patients are interacting with healthcare providers, any treatments that they may be receiving, any other assessments that they're receiving, to see if we can understand if there are patterns of how patients interact with their clinicians and how much they may need healthcare service. PRD data can be used to support the development of clinical care guidelines. We have a number of care guidelines that have been developed in the past 5 years, and the INPDR has been part of that development. And for the acid sphingomyelase deficiency guidelines that were published last year, the role of the patient was really instrumental in the development, and there is certainly a view for future guidelines to really take notice of the kind of information that is captured by the PRD to make sure that any guidelines that come out in the future are reflecting the reality of patients and families living with Niemann-Pick disease. Down the line, when we have more therapies available, PRD can support the monitoring of the kind of impact, and not just the clinical impact, but therapies have an impact on patients' quality of life and how they perceive their own disease. And the PRD, with the questions that it asks and the questionnaires it contains, can really tune in to the impact that therapies can have on quality of life. And kind of correlated, linked to that, is the fact that data collected by the PRD can be used as evidence in reimbursement decision making when it comes to medication funders deciding if they are willing to fund the medication or not. They can look at patient outcome data as part of their decision making. And again, the kind of questionnaires that are contained in the PRD is set up to support those kind of decision making activities. So really, the PRD is set up to support a wide range of research studies to a wide range of applicants from across the world. Again, I just want to switch gears, and he couldn't join us this evening, but Jackson Poutney is a PhD student and a postgraduate researcher at Aston University. And his PhD is looking at the quality of life of patients living with Niemann-Pick disease type C. And he is using PRD data to support his PhD, sorry, he's using PRD data, excuse me, to support his PhD program. So Jackson's very kindly given us a 2-3 minute video to explain a bit about his project and what it means to have PRD data as part of it.
Hi everyone, this is another quick video to outline one of the studies I aim to run as part of my PhD. So the study will focus on validating a quality of life questionnaire specific to both adult and child patients with Niemann-Pick disease type C. So in 2019, the Niemann-Pick disease type C quality of life questionnaire was developed by Lydia Aston, Dr. Rachel Shaw, and Dr. Rebecca Knibb at Aston University. However, this questionnaire has not yet been fully validated. This is due to the fact that to validate these questionnaires, we need large sample sizes from the target population, which just weren't possible at the time. And we need these large sample sizes in order to run the tests required to validate these questionnaires. This presents a bit of a problem because if we don't know whether a questionnaire is valid, we don't know whether it can accurately measure quality of life in patients with Niemann-Pick disease type C. Although with the establishment of the patient-reported database within the International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry, we may now have a solution to this problem. So we have applied to the International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry in order to access patient-reported data on questionnaires. And one of these questionnaires will be the Niemann-Pick Quality of Life questionnaire. So the ideal endpoint for this study will be to have a valid quality of life questionnaire for both adult and child patients with NPC. And this will provide patients with NPC with a voice in expressing how the condition impacts on their lives. We can also use these quality of life questionnaires as endpoints in clinical trials, so they can provide further evidence as to the effectiveness of potential new treatments for Niemann-Pick disease type C. Now, this project will run across the whole 3 years of my PhD. And once we have validated the quality of life questionnaires, we are then in a position to pursue other objectives. Now, I've made a research poster which outlines the wider project in a bit more detail, and I hope to release this to the community very soon. So in terms of progress I've made so far with the project, as I said before, I've applied to the International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry in order to access patient-reported data. Yeah. So currently I'm awaiting a decision on whether my application has been successful. But hopefully in a few weeks, we'll get a look at some of this patient-reported data, and I'll keep you updated as the project progresses. Thank you very much for watching.
And I'm pleased to say, since this video was produced a few months ago, that the application Jackson submitted has been successful, and we are actively sharing PRD data with Jackson to support his PhD. And I understand he's now at the point of analysing the PRD data to support his project. So we're very excited that this is an example of a key piece of research to really develop something that the patient community will benefit from. And this is PRD data in action. This is exactly what we want to see being undertaken with our PRD data, with your PRD data. And that's just one example of a research study that is using PRD data. So we have measuring quality of life in patients with Niemann-Pick disease type C. We also have a study looking at the symptom burden and impact of NPC on daily life. We have a quality of life in children living with acetylphenylmyelinase deficiency and the care experience of children with ASMD, with ASMD, and also the impact that lipidase alpha has on patients. And this was a collaborative project between NNPDF, NPUK, and INPDR. And a similar experience assessment is being undertaken looking at the impact of therapy and quality of life in adults with ASMD, again using PRD data, and again a collaboration between NNPDF, NPUK, and INPDR. So these are just a few examples of the kind of research that can be supported with PRD data. And these research studies can only be successful by having patients contributing data into the PRD. So we talked about what the PRD is and what it collects, and hopefully now you're in a position to say, I want to participate, I want to join in, I want to contribute data to positively impact research. As mentioned, the PRD is a web-based registry. You can access it by going to inpdr.org/sign-up, and you'll see on the side of the screen the website that takes you to. And if you look at the patient bit and you click on either login or sign up, this will take you to the PRD. So of course, if you're new to the PRD, you haven't enrolled before, then you'll need to create a new account. If you're returning to the PRD, then if you know your login details, you can click login and complete any questionnaires that may be available to you. If you haven't been on your PRD account for quite some time, you can request a password reset. If you follow the instructions, it's a very straightforward process. And when you log back into the PRD, if it has been some time since you participated, you may be asked to update your consent. And there'll also be a prompt that the system gives you when you log into the registry. And of course, if you have any questions or you need any support at any step in your journey with the PRD, you can reach out to us at info@inpdr.org, and a member of the team will get back to you over email. What I want to do now is do something a bit more practical and hopefully a bit more interesting. We've talked about the PRD, what it does, what it collects, but what I want to do now is show you how to use the PRD, how to create a user account, the first step that needs to be followed to take part in the PRD. I'm then going to show you how to enroll a patient into the PRD, how to get patients registered. And then finally, I'll show you how to complete your first questionnaire. These are the three main steps that all users of the PRD will have to complete to take part in the PRD. And the hoping is that by showing you the demonstration of how to do these things, you'll see hopefully how quick it can be, how straightforward it can be, and what steps are involved. I think sometimes when you are looking at joining something for the first time, it can be a bit unnerving not knowing what to expect and what exactly is required. So I'm hoping that these demonstrations will give you a good understanding of what it means to take part in the PRD. So first things first, we need to create a user account. So when you've gone through inpdr.org/sign-up and you've clicked sign up, you'll come to this page. We will then click on patient reported data on the top right-hand side of the screen, and that will take you to the PRD login page. There's some information about the PRD on the left-hand side that you can read. You can log in if you're returning, but as we're creating a new account, we will go to create a new account. This will bring up the new user account form. What's important to note that at this point, you need to enter the information of the person who will be completing the questionnaires. So we're not at this point looking for the information about the patient. We are looking for the information about the person who will be completing the questionnaires, the user. This could be the patient, or this could be a parent or a carer of the patient. So we put in an email address that will be your username, enter a password that you will use, and then we look for some information, again, of the user. So in this situation, I put myself, I put down INPDR office as my address, I put down my town, my county, my postcode, and I will put country. This helps us understand the coverage that the PRD is obtaining in terms of targeting patients across the world. And we also use your email address to contact you if we have any queries or if you need any support. You can see that I've completed the user form, and I now receive a notification on screen saying you have created your account. The next step is to verify your account. And this is a standard step. If you've signed up for something online before, you'll be very familiar that once you've created an account, you'll have to verify your account. And we do this via email. So you will have an email in your inbox with a link to verify your account. So I'll go to my inbox now. You can see an email here from info, welcome to International Niemann-Pick Disease Registry. We click on it, and if we scroll down, we see there, to complete the registration process, please follow this link to confirm your email. Very simple, just click on the link, and that will take you to the PRD. So here you can see the PRD user dashboard. So this will give you a summary of the information that you've entered so far. You'll see your email address and your name. And when we have patients enrolled, there'll be much more information on this page. But this was just an example of how to create your user account. And I don't know if anyone had a stopwatch, but that whole process can take no more than 5 minutes from start to finish, to going to the website, completing the user form, waiting for the email to come in, which comes in very quickly, clicking verify account, getting to this stage. It's a very quick process. Now that we've done that first pivotal step of creating an account, we now come to enrolling a patient. So if we pick up where we left off on the last slide, we have the user dashboard here. And to enroll a patient, very simply, we click on the Enroll Another button. Once we click on that, we come to the forms that we need to complete to enroll the patient. Now, the first question that the registry will ask you is about the patient themselves. So this will dictate what questionnaires you will see down the line based on if you're an ASMD patient, NPC patient, or if you're a parent or carer of an ASMD or NPC patient. So you see here, there are 5 options to choose from. Please select the option that is most applicable to your situation. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have put myself as an NPC patient and I would like to register myself. So I click on that. I then go to the next section of the form, which is patient identity. This is the patient's information, the patient's name. Because I'm registering as a patient, I will enter my name here. I will put down my sex, and I will put down my date of birth. And just to note here, you can use the calendar box to put in the date of birth, but for the purposes of this exercise, I've just picked a made-up date of birth. We then go next to the consent form. Now, this is crucially important. This is a very important step. The consent form gives you all the information that you need to know about participating in the PRD. It will tell you what it means to take part, what are the expectations for you to taking part, and what are your rights for taking part in this piece of research. The form itself, I recommend taking as long as possible as you need, as long as you need to go through the questionnaire. It is crucial that you don't give consent until you've read the consent form and you understand it. So you'll see each section of the consent form, you have to click on the little arrow to read it. This is to make sure that users are clicking through every single part of the consent form and are taking the time to read the questionnaire. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm clicking through, but if you choose to join the PRD and you read the consent form, please take as much time as you need to go through that that consent form, so you understand exactly what is required to take part in the PRD. If you have any questions when you read the PRD consent form, or something isn't clear, please do reach out to us. You can email us at info@inpdr.org, and we'll get back to you and we'll answer any questions that you may have about the consent form and about being part of the PRD. So once you read the consent form and you understand every part of the consent form and you are happy to take part in the PRD, there are a number of checkboxes that you need to tick. And these things confirm that you've read the consent form, that you've read the information sheet, that you understand it's your choice to take part in the PRD. You understand that people from INPDR and regulatory authorities can review your information only where it's related to you taking part in the research, that you understand the confidentiality procedures around the PRD, and you read and understood how the data will be used, and it will be used for the purposes of supporting research. You'll be also asked to tick that you're happy to be contacted about future research opportunities, and that you're happy for your personal data and special category data, so information around your health, your genetics and clinical information, you're happy for the PRD to hold that information. You then have choices about how your data is used and how your data is shared. So these are yes, no options. So you can say yes to your data being shared in certain ways and no to how your data is shared in certain ways. It is your data ultimately at the end of the day, and it's up to you how you want to see your data shared. And however you indicate your preference to how your data is shared, we will work to that. So if you want your data shared with certain projects here, such as approved research projects by academic charity, if you say yes, we will share it with those groups. If you say no, then we won't share it. So these are your data sharing options. So again, take your time in reading each statement, take your time in reading the consent form, and make sure you are happy with the options that you've indicated. Once you've answered all those questions, if you type your name in the free text box, this acts as your signature. Reading the consent form can take some time. So what you can do, you can always save and exit the form. This means that you can take a break from the consent form, you can log out of the PRD, and you can come back to completing the consent form at another time. So that is always an option. If it is taking quite some time to read the consent form and you need to take a break or you want to ask a question, you can click save and exit, knowing that you can come back to consent form at a later date. But again, for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll click next. Now we're looking for some information about the clinician. Now we appreciate some patients may not be seeing a doctor at this time, so this field is completely optional. It doesn't have to be entered, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll say that my hospital is University Hospital. It is at 123 Hospital Way. My doctor is Dr. House. His email address is house@universityhospital.com. And his phone number is as listed here. And then we can go to next. The next part of the enrollment form is looking at the medical history of the patient. Now, these are some basic clinical questions that we ask users to answer about the patient. So this just gives us a better characterization of the patient that's going to be enrolled. So in this example, we will say yes to the first question, and we'll say no. And what's important to note that depending on the response that you give, you may be shown more questions, and so just answer the questions as you see them. So if we proceed through it, and if you see there, just to reinforce again, depending on what you respond, changes what you will be asked. So we'll tick through here. And we will tick through the next question. And also hit unknown if we don't know some things. And again, just asked about the age at diagnosis. and if any family members have been affected. And just remember, this is an example for a Niemann-Pick disease type C patient. So if you are enrolling as a ASMD patient, you'll be asked different questions. If you're enrolling as a parent or caregiver of a patient, again, you'll be shown different questions. So this is just an example. The questions you see will depend on the user type and the patient type that you're entering. And finally, we're asking a question around genetic diagnosis. Again, this genetic diagnosis information helps us understand more about the patient that is being enrolled. So we can see here, has the genetic test been performed? If we say yes, we are asked, is the genetic document available? If you have the genetic report available and it is scanned, you can upload a copy. It will be held securely and safely on the PRD. You can share this with us. You don't have to share this with us if you don't want to. That is absolutely fine. But if you don't have access to the genetic report and you are happy for us to do so, we can contact your clinician using the clinician information that you provided earlier to obtain a copy of this mutation report, this genetic report. So just showing you here, if you click, you can just drag and drop the PDF of the report if it's available. Again, if it isn't available, or if you don't wish to share it, that is absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be shared. But we'll say in this scenario, it's available. It's available, we don't have it. Can you contact our clinician? And then just see what happens when we change our responses. And then when we've entered all the information and we're ready to enroll the patient because we have everything entered that we need, we click Mark as complete. And you'll see here a notification to say you have completed the enrollment form for the patient, which is myself. What happens next is members of the PRD team will receive a notification to say that a new patient has been enrolled in the system. What we do then, we go away and review the forms that have been completed for this patient, and we're checking to make sure that all the information that we're expecting has been entered correctly. If there's any errors or any information that's missing, we may contact you to try and fill those gaps and get that information entered. But what will happen if we have all the information that we need, we will approve that patient and you will receive a notification to say that the patient has been accepted. Because that hasn't happened just yet, we've only just enrolled this patient in this example, we see that the status is marked as preparing. This means that the PRD team is going to go away and review the enrollment form for that patient. So if we look at our emails, we also have an email to confirm that we have submitted that patient enrollment form and that they'll be waiting for the notification email. Once that patient enrollment has been confirmed, you will receive a further email to say that the patient has been registered and you can start completing questionnaires. So let's say that we've received that email saying that the patient has been enrolled successfully and we're ready to complete our first questionnaire. This is the patient view that you will see in your user dashboard. You can see the name of the patient up here, their sex and their date of birth, and their patient ID on the right-hand side. And you can see that there are questionnaires ready to be completed. So to simply get started, we click on the first questionnaire, which again, remember, the questionnaires you will be shown are tailored to ASMD versus NPC versus adult patient completing or a carer or parent completing. So again, I'm not going to go through every single questionnaire, but I'm just going to give you a sense of what they look like. And you'll see that when you first open the questionnaire, you'll get some information about what the questionnaire is looking to obtain. But then you'll see the question, and then you will see the data point. So in this example, I've skipped over a few steps, but you can see that it is a case of clicking on the response that's most appropriate and clicking next. And I've just run through very quickly what that looks like. When you get to the end of the questionnaire and you've completed all the questions, you will have a message saying, thank you for completing the survey, and you click submit, which we have here, and you can proceed to the next survey. So remember, we have a number of surveys that we're looking to complete every 6 months. So you'll be shown all the questionnaires in one survey set. So ideally, The questionnaires should all be completed at the same time, but we do appreciate that sometimes it may be a case that you only have time to complete maybe 1 or 2 questionnaires in one sitting. We just ask that you complete the questionnaires that you can complete fully, and if you need to take a break and come back a day or 2 later, then you can do that. But just try and make sure that all the questionnaires are completed as closely as possible. And again, we're just having a quick go through of what some of these questions may look like. Again, these will differ depending on the disease and the type of user. So it is a case of selecting the most appropriate response and clicking on next. I've skipped here to what the screen looks like when all the questionnaires have been completed. So imagine every questionnaire has been completed. What we see is green next to all the questionnaires. This indicates that the questionnaire is completed, which again you can see here where it's written complete, and a little padlock appears. Now this means that the survey set is locked, it can't be changed, and you're now ready to be notified in 6 months' time for the next survey set to be made available. This will be an email that comes through to you to notify you. Whilst you can't edit, you can review the questionnaire and see what you'd put in. So that can allow you to look over time the kind of information that you've entered into the questionnaire. And again, just a little padlock there, just confirming that those questionnaires are locked. And you will again receive an email notification to say that that the PRD questionnaire has been completed and is locked. And you'll see here, I'm afraid it's a little bit fuzzy, but it does say questionnaires are made available for completion every 6 months. We will send you a reminder email when the next questionnaire is due for completion in July 2024. Again, this 6-month period will depend on when you first completed the questionnaires. So you will receive an email in July prompting you to come back to the PRD to answer the next round of questions. So hopefully that's given you a bit more of an insight as to what it actually means to take part in the PRD, how you can create a user account, how you can enroll a patient, and how you can complete your questionnaire. As you can see, creating a user account is very quick, but the enrollment and the questionnaire can take some time. But we do ask that you do take your time. Do not feel rushed. Do not feel like you have to get things done in one sitting. If you can complete questionnaires in one go, that is fantastic, but there is no pressure and obligation as long as you can complete the questionnaires within a day or 2 of the last questionnaires being completed. So this is your registry at the end of the day. This is for the community, by the community. This is members of the Niemann-Pick disease community coming together to produce the PRD, a tool that can transform research and transform the lives of patients across the world. And we need the community to help us to facilitate that research. And by joining the PRD, you can help us. So you can join us at inpdr.org/sign up. If you want to learn more about the INPDR in general, about the clinician-reported database, or what the INPDR is trying to achieve, you can learn more at inpdr.org. We're very active on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn as well. So if you're not following us already, please do give us a follow. And again, if you have any questions, any concerns, or you need any support, not just about the PRD, but even questions about the INPDR in general, please do get in touch with us via info@inpdr.org. And it sounds like I'm repeating myself because we've had this slide earlier, but this really is the key take-home message. If you don't take anything else away from this webinar, take this. Joining the patient-reported database is the most effective way to support meaningful research. I've just looked at the time and I think we have 5 minutes as planned to go through some questions and answers. And I'd just like to hand over to Maria, who's been keeping an eye on the chat box, I'm sure. And I do believe we've had a few questions that came in from some people who weren't able to join us ahead of the webinar, but who posted us some questions that they thought would be useful for us to explain to the community.
Yeah, thank you, Shaun. It was very interesting and very well explained. And the walkthrough, I think it was key to understand it like completely. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we received 3 questions before the meeting, the webinar. So the first one is, how long do I have to complete the questionnaires before they are logged?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. As mentioned, and as you saw in the walkthrough, there are a number of questionnaires that we are looking for users to complete. There is some flexibility that you can complete maybe 2 of the questionnaires, take a break for a day, and then complete the rest of the questionnaires. We do ask that patients complete their questionnaires within 2 weeks. After that 2-week period, the surveys will be locked, which means any answers that you've given will be locked in, and the rest of the questionnaires won't be accessible. So it's 2 weeks maximum, but we do ask, if you can't complete the questionnaires in one sitting, then please try and complete the questionnaires within a day or 2 gap.
Okay, perfect. The second one is, can I join the PRD and complete the questionnaires on my phone?
Mhm. Absolutely. So there's a few ways to interact with the PRD and to join the PRD. So you can use your phone, you can use your smart device, so you can use a tablet, and you can use a computer as well. So you can register on a phone, but it depends on what you find most comfortable. Some people may feel very comfortable registering and completing questionnaires on their phone, and the PRD does optimize to the phone, so it looks quite nice. But some people may be more comfortable completing on a tablet or completing on a computer, and that's absolutely fine as well. So whatever way you feel most comfortable enrolling and answering questions, answering questionnaires, then we encourage you to do that, even if that includes using your phone.
Okay. And the last one is, can I leave the PRD if I want to?
Absolutely, no questions. So taking part in the PRD is completely voluntary. There is no pressure. There's no requirement for patients or family members or caregivers to take part in the PRD. And you are well within your right to change your mind. If you no longer wish to take part in the PRD, we will absolutely respect that decision. There is a way to withdraw from the PRD. So on the user login page, there is a withdraw option. You can click the link and follow these steps. And what's important to state is, if you do choose to withdraw, any data that you've contributed to the registry, you can have a choice of how that data is used. You can say, no, I want all my data deleted, I don't want it to be used, and we will respect that. Or you can say, no, I want the data I've entered to be used for research, I just don't want to contribute any more data. And that's absolutely fine. Just to note 2 things. If data has been entered and has already gone out to support a research study, we can't recall that data back. So that research would be using that PRD data, and we can't change that. So that's active. But the other thing to note, if you do feel like you want to withdraw, again, it's optional, but if you have any questions or if there's anything we can support you with, please do email us via info@inpdr.org, and we'll do our best to help. But ultimately, it's your decision if you wish to withdraw.
Okay, and I see that Jonathan has the hands up, so maybe he wants to ask something.
Of course.
Hi, it's not Jonathan, we're his parents, but
Okay.
I think we signed up to this registry at the last Niemann-Pick conference, but I've never received any of these questionnaires you talk about.
Okay.
And I think we may have done similar questionnaires through Aston University in years gone past. So how should we check that we're part of this actual registry rather than all these things in isolation?
Sure. So the easiest way, and sorry to hear that you've been having some challenges with the PRD, but they sound like there's some very easy fixes there. So if I could ask if you could email us at info@inpdr.org, we'll reach out to you, we'll respond straight away, and we'll see what we can do. It might be that there's just a minor technical glitch somewhere, but we'll do our best to support you.
That's fine. I mean, maybe the answer is to try and sign up again and see if we're actually registered, if it went through. But I'll do as you say, I'll email you. Okay.
Absolutely. If you do try and register again, the system should say, if someone's trying to register with a email address that's already been registered, you'll get a notification.
Yeah.
It might just be a bit quicker if you email us, and then we can see what we can do from our side.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And I can't see any other questions in the chat, so I think that means we've been crystal clear in our presentation this evening. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much to everyone who took the time to join us tonight. Hopefully you understand more about the PRD. Hopefully you understand what we're trying to achieve here. And hopefully you are in a position to, if you haven't already, join the PRD and support us in what we're trying to do. Or if you have joined previously and you're looking to return, to come back into the fold, to join us again to try and make inroads in improving the lives of patients with Niemann-Pick disease across the world. So it leaves me to say thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening.